The Baltimore Ravens lose a wild game to the Las Vegas Raiders in Week 1 by the final score of 33-27. We dive into a full game recap next here on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And we've returned here with another episode of Locked On Ravens. I am your host, Kevin Ostreicher of Ravens Wire, talking to you here on this Taco Tuesday. Now, unfortunately, again, Spencer Schultz not able to be here with us. It was a late game last night. The game really went a lot longer than people anticipated, and the score, I think, was not what a lot of people anticipated in this one. It was unfortunate, but the Ravens did lose their first matchup of the 2021 season. And for the Ravens, it puts them at 0-1, puts them in a bit of a tough spot heading back to M&T Bank Stadium to play the Kansas City Chiefs. And there's a lot to dive into from Week 1. There's all this different stuff about the offense and the defense, what went well, what didn't go well. And honestly, I think the negatives right now are definitely looming a lot larger than the positives. So just being able to talk about what did go well and what did go wrong, what can we take away from this game, there's plenty to dive into. So in this first segment, I do want to talk about the Ravens offense and just what happened, why the team started off so strong and then kind of tapered off towards the end there. Then in the second segment, diving into the Ravens defense, because it was not a great performance in certain aspects, and the team does have to clean that up. So talking about what those aspects were and why that was the case. And then in the final segment, just looking ahead to what's next for this Ravens team. I mentioned the Ravens do head back to M&T Bank Stadium to play the Kansas City Chiefs and just what that game might look like. But obviously right now, the more important thing to talk about is just what happened in this crazy wild 33-27 loss that the Ravens took at the hands of the Las Vegas Raiders. So we'll dive into all of it right here, right now. Before we do that, though, be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube. Like the video. It helps out the channel, the YouTube algorithm as well. And if you're following along with us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, be sure to follow the show so you know when our shows come out and get those notifications. Our shows come out on Monday through Friday at 6 a.m. Eastern Time. And you can also follow me on Twitter at KOstriker34. So with all that being said, we will jump right into this pretty crushing loss. I'd say it was a game that both teams, it seemed like they didn't want to win. It was one team giving the ball back to the other and then vice versa. And then it was going again. A lot of ties, some lead changes in there as well. But starting off with the offensive side of the ball, let's just look at some stats here really quickly. Overall, Lamar Jackson, the quarterback for the Ravens, expected to have a pretty big game in this one. He played all right. He had 19 completions out of 30 attempts, 235 yards, also threw for a touchdown. Led the Ravens in both carries and yards on the ground, had 12 carries for 86 yards and no touchdowns, and also lost 2 fumbles in there as well. So those 2 fumbles were pretty costly fumbles and gave the Raiders great field position. The Raiders were able to score on both of those Lamar Jackson fumbles, one coming in overtime. But a lot of people are pinning this loss on Jackson, or at least what I've seen, a lot of people are pinning this loss on Jackson. I'm not necessarily doing that right now. Yes, Lamar Jackson was not perfect in this one. I'm not going to sit up here and tell you, oh, Lamar Jackson did everything right and there was nothing he can do better. There are definitely areas he can improve. We saw a couple overthrows. We saw him make some not so great decisions. Running the football, he hesitated at times as well. It just seems a little bit, this was almost like a preseason game. We've talked about it before, how the Ravens didn't really get their starters out there. And they were kind of working with not a lot of playing time together with both the offense and the defense, but the offense didn't really have a ton of that time on the field in live game action, especially in regular season live game action. So I said on the show multiple times, I'd expect some sloppiness from Lamar Jackson, from the offensive line, from a lot of different positional groups, maybe the wide receivers. I mean, there were some positives in there. Marquise Brown, I thought, had a good game. Tyson Williams showed some positives. Also some negatives was kind of so not so great in pass protection. Latavius Murray, I mean, look, coming in just a couple days ago, he did the best he could. The Ravens decided not to activate Le'Veon Bell or Devonta Freeman for this one. How much of a difference would those guys have made? I'm not entirely sure. But, with Lamar Jackson, it was an up and down game, but let's look at the facts here. Lamar Jackson led the Ravens offense down the field and ended up getting them in prime position to win the football game. He got Justin Tucker into field goal range. Justin Tucker hits that field goal with 37 seconds left. Lamar Jackson didn't go out there and play defense and give up all those yards in 2 plays to set up the Raiders for their game-tying field goal to send the game to overtime. So it's kind of a two-way street there where, yes, some decisions Lamar Jackson made definitely contributed to this loss. But other ones, you could argue, would have set them up for a win if the Ravens defense didn't, I guess, just fumble it away in the end. And obviously Jackson was the one fumbling, I get it. But the Ravens defense also had their fair share of issues and successes, which we'll talk about in that second segment. Now, when looking at this game, the obvious huge storyline is the offensive line, and it's not a good one. The offensive line, I don't know how to put it, but they were atrocious, and that's putting it pretty nicely. There were players on the offensive line who performed a lot worse than others, Alejandro Villanueva being the one who definitely had the worst game out of all of them. Villanueva was constantly just beat over and over again. And credit to the Raiders defense. I give a lot of credit to the Raiders for coming out there and sticking to their game plan and stopping the Ravens offense and kind of making them a bit uncomfortable. It seemed like the Ravens offense didn't really get into the full swing of things. And yes, look, the Ravens offense, they lost J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards and Justice Hill, 3 guys who were very familiar with the Ravens offense and now utilizing some guys who are not. And so with the Ravens run game being the strength, it will take some time. And I've said that before, but honestly, I wasn't expecting this, especially out of the offensive line. Again, credit to Max Crosby, credit to Carl Nassib, credit to Yannick Ngakoue. All 3 guys put on a show. Ronnie Stanley had his fair share of struggles as well, although he did get a bit better as the game went on. It was a rough go of things for both tackles early on. The only difference is, in my opinion, Villanueva ended up kind of continuing those struggles, and Stanley ended up getting a bit better. I thought Bradley Bozeman played relatively well. I thought that Tyree Phillips, before his injury, played very well, and that's another unfortunate thing. The Ravens, they have most likely, at the time of this recording, we don't really know anything. The injury has not been confirmed as anything serious, but it looked pretty bad. Phillips could not put any weight on his leg. He had to be carted off the field. It looks like he's going to be done for the year. Now, hopefully it's not the case, and I'm really hoping it's not, because I think that Phillips was in for a pretty big year, and his loss for the Ravens would do a couple things. One, it would make the left guard job go to Ben Powers. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Ben Powers, I thought, played decently well. He didn't do amazing, but he didn't do terribly either. But it means the Ravens would be down the guy who I think they're most comfortable putting in at that swing tackle position. If one of Alejandro Villanueva or Ronnie Stanley were to go down, the Ravens would have probably put Tyree Phillips over on that right side. And then either if it was Stanley, move Villanueva to the left side, or just keep Villanueva out, and then Stanley would come and stay at his left tackle position. Now, Phillips in general, right, has struggled at times, but it did really seem like he was putting it all together in that game, which I think was a great thing for him. And unfortunately, he does go down with that injury. What does it mean for the Ravens offensive line? If he is out for the year, they're going to have a lot of work to do, and especially because one of their best performers from that game on Monday night is going to be done for the year. Maybe. We don't know again yet. Nothing has been confirmed. But it just seemed like Lamar Jackson had no time to throw. And just pulling up stats here really quickly, the Ravens were under pressure. Or let me rephrase. Lamar Jackson was under pressure on 54.5% of his dropbacks against the Las Vegas Raiders. 18 pressures on 33 dropbacks. That is the highest percentage that the Raiders have done as a team, that they've gotten as a team since 2016. So this was a game that just all over the field, you saw Lamar Jackson under a lot of pressure, not a lot of time to think. And we're kind of leaving off where we started last year, right? Where the Ravens, the pressure killed this team. And it killed Lamar Jackson. I mean, Lamar Jackson got hurt because of the pressure. He got a concussion because his center couldn't snap the football properly, all this different stuff. The Ravens need their offensive line to play better. This was not a good performance by them. A lot of people are pinning the loss on Jackson. I don't see it that way. The offensive play calling was also questionable. The Ravens in general, I'll pull up the rushing stats here. 34 carries for 189 yards total. That's 5.6 yards per carry. The Ravens run the ball 34 times. They pass it 30 times. It just seemed like the way that the Ravens were pass blocking, they could not get a ton going. Now, there were a couple of nice plays, a couple to Marquise Brown. Sidney Watkins had that nice play late, but Again, Lamar Jackson, 12 for 86. Tyson Williams, 9 for 65 and a touchdown. Latavius Murray, 10 for 28 and a touchdown. So not a strong game from Latavius Murray from a yards per carry average, but he still contributed positively. Tyson Williams had that fumble, kind of like a post-play thing where it didn't really affect anything, but was he in John Harbaugh's doghouse? We didn't really see a lot of him after that fumble, but was still very efficient. Whereas the play calling, very conservative at times, very aggressive other times where it didn't make sense. First down passes when the run game is working, right? This is a very pivotal stretch for Greg Roman. If the Ravens start off 0-2, if they start off 1-3, Greg Roman could be gone in this Ravens or on this Ravens team, because you have someone who has struggled to kind of put together a pass offense. You have someone who the play calling has been questionable. So I think that if the Ravens are looking for somebody to say, hey, we need to send a message to this team and turn it around, Greg Roman is my number one choice for that. I'll call it a scapegoat type role. But it was not a strong performance by the offensive line. Mark Andrews also had a pivotal drop. He wasn't really featured in this game. The Raiders really seemed to key in on him. Overall, the offense was a bit disappointing, but again, it's a bit expected to see the struggles, especially with the lack of time on the field together. But again, I was not expecting this. So a disappointing outcome by the offense, but there were some positives to take away, including how Tyson Williams looked on some of his runs, what Sammy Watkins and Marquise Brown were able to contribute, and obviously some of the throws that Lamar Jackson did make, they were absolutely on the money. When we get back here, though, we're going to be talking about the Ravens defense and just what went wrong over the fourth quarter and overtime. So stay tuned for that, and we will be right back. But first, we're back and better than ever. All eyes are on the gridiron as teams are back to start another football season. As always, BetOnline is your number one spot for all the pro and college football action this year. With a new updated site and interface, even more odds, props, contests, BetOnline AG continues to be the number one source for everything football. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today to receive your 100% welcome bonus. That's double your initial deposit just for signing up. Don't forget to use promo code NFL100. From football, basketball, boxing, right to your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline, the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. And we return here with our second segment of this Tuesday edition of Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher still here with you. And we're now going to dive into the Ravens defense and really just what went wrong over the fourth quarter and overtime. There were some positives. I thought Calais Campbell played very well. Odafe Owe showed some flashes. Anthony Averett, coming in for Marcus Peters, played well himself. But it just seemed like the Ravens let up off the gas, and not from a blitzing perspective because they were blitzing, but it just seemed like they could not do anything. And it seemed like that gut feeling of mine was if the Ravens don't end the game on that Justin Tucker field goal, the Raiders are going to get the ball back, drive down the field, and force overtime. So what happened? That's exactly what happened. Pulling up some team stats here for the Ravens. In general, it was a game that the defense could end up just wanting to forget about, moving on. 491 total yards of offense for the Raiders. They converted 7 of 15 third downs compared to the Ravens 3 of 12 on third down. They passed for 409 yards. Derek Carr lit this team up, 34 of 56 for 435 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Darren Waller, 10 receptions, 105 yards, and a score. So this was, not a great performance. The Ravens held the Raiders to no points in the first quarter and no points in the third quarter. All the damage the Raiders did came in the second quarter, the fourth quarter, and overtime. So, it was difficult in the fourth quarter and overtime, but throughout the entire game, and especially leading up to the fourth quarter and overtime, the Ravens' pressure was just so inconsistent because we would see it. We saw Justin Houston have a really nice play where he and Peril McPhee got home for a sack. Odafe Owe put some pressure and had a sack in there. Calais Campbell made some nice moves as well, but in that fourth quarter and overtime in particular, I mean, the Ravens were sending everybody and they were not getting any pressure. They were sending 7. They were sending 8. They were leaving guys in one-on-one situations. They were leaving guys on islands in their defensive backfield. And in those situations where you're blitzing, you have to be able to get at least some amount of pressure in order to have any success because defensive backs can only cover for so long. You have a team who, with the Ravens, if they can get pressure, they're going to probably have a lot of success on defense, because we've seen it over the past 2, 3, 4 years. The Ravens have not been able to do a lot of that. And it's been a bit concerning. And I know the conversations have come up. Is it the players? Is it the scheme? What is it that's going on where the Ravens cannot generate consistent pressure despite having tons and tons of talent in that regard? And for right now, I don't know what it is, but Don Martindale did not call a very good game in the last 15, 30 minutes, whatever you want to say. It was a lot of zero blitzes and just not a lot to show for it. Derek Carr was standing clean in that pocket. The Ravens had 3 total sacks in this one, same with the Las Vegas Raiders. So when looking at all of that and just seeing the Ravens go zero blitz, zero blitz, zero blitz, and just not getting anything, it was discouraging, because I know a lot of talk was made about the pass rush before Justin Houston, and that was a really, really big concern. And understandably so, the Ravens losing Matthew Judon, Yannick Ngakoue, Jihad Ward. But the Yannick Ngakoue that we saw on Monday night against the Ravens was the exact Yannick Ngakoue that the Ravens wanted to get and that they expected they were getting when they traded for him back during the 2020 trade deadline. Now, Yannick Ngakoue has been very vocal about, hey, I wasn't used right in Baltimore. They didn't really use me the way that I should have been used. And now it seems like the Raiders, Gus Bradley, that defense is doing a great job with him. And, credit to the Raiders, credit to Gus Bradley, and credit to that entire Raiders, defensive unit for doing all of that with him and getting him into a place where he can succeed. Now, of course, the Ravens scheme, no player is going to change that for them. Don Martindale is who he is. He's had a lot of success at the NFL level, but one area that has been a bit criticized in his defense is the pass rush, and just why have they not been able to get consistent pressure? Because we will see it for consecutive plays or for multiple drives, and then for quarters or, halves, it will go completely missing even when the pressure is there. And we'll talk about this a bit in the third segment, but heading back to M&T Bank Stadium to play the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, where if you blitz Patrick Mahomes, and even if you're getting pressure while blitzing, he picks apart a defense. If the Ravens are blitzing Patrick Mahomes on a Sunday night and not getting pressure while blitzing, that's going to be an issue. So they have to figure it out, definitely. I don't know, again, what it is. Is it the players? Is it the scheme? A lot of question marks coming up here, but I think the Ravens, look, they have the talent. This is just week 1. So I know the crazy week 1 overreactions are coming in. Like, the Ravens they're going to lose every game, or they're not going to make the playoffs. It is week 1. Stuff can happen, and some bad stuff can happen. Some good stuff can happen. But I'm not absolutely giving up on this Ravens pass rush, but you cannot go around the fact that it was not very good in this game. The rush defense was okay. The Raiders, that wasn't really a big part of their offense, though, for most of the game. They did break off some big runs. Josh Jacobs, Kenyon Drake had a couple. But I wasn't disappointed with how the Ravens played the run. There were a few missed tackles in there that were big. I know Tyus Bowser missed one. They also, it's stuff like putting Justin Houston in covers on Hunter Renfrow in an overtime game and dropping him back into his zone. It's those types of plays and things where, wouldn't you rather have Tyus Bowser doing that? I understand the positional versatility of stuff. I understand sending Justin Houston into a zone and saying, hey, cover this area or get on this man. But just doing that in an overtime game and then doing all the different stuff. Marlon Humphrey kind of thinks Houston's going to send him out of bounds. He doesn't. Renfrow runs up the sideline. It's stuff like that where it's like, wouldn't you rather have a better player like even Odafe Owe in that situation, in that zone or on that man? So the Ravens, this is a learning experience. It was a really rough, really, really tough game to swallow, especially because you want to be on the winning side of these types of games, where the Ravens in week 14 against Cleveland, like imagine if they had lost that game, and just how everybody, in the Ravens nation looks back on that game, how the Ravens themselves look back on that game. That game in Cleveland, everybody looks back on it with joy. And oh my God, that was one of the best games ever. But everybody now is going to be looking to forget this one. And look, it's unfortunate because it was an instant classic. And again, credit to the Raiders. They were underdog the whole week here. I predicted the Ravens to win 35-24. And I had said on this show multiple times, I said, I think the Ravens will win. And obviously I was wrong. But I said, I don't think it's going to be a blowout. And it was not a blowout. The Raiders played the Ravens tough the whole entire game. They go down 14-0. What do? They end up coming back. And I think playing a really, really good game. Let me pull up something else real quick that I want to talk about, and that is the time of possession battle. You look at the time of possession battle, and I have said on this show before that the Ravens ended up really winning games when they won the time of possession battle. And for me, at least, I think that this team, they should have won the time of possession battle, but they just didn't. 34 minutes and 8 seconds for the Las Vegas Raiders and 32 minutes and 14 seconds for the Baltimore Ravens. So not something that you want to see, especially because the Ravens were running the ball efficiently. And because of that, you would think, all right, ball control offense, right? They're going to just continue running the football. No, the run game was not what we have seen and what we have grown accustomed to when looking at what the Ravens have done over the past couple of seasons, right? Greg Roman building or helping build that really historic rushing offense that the team has had. They're still working in Tyson Williams. They're still working in Latavius Murray, Trenton Cannon, whether it be Le'Veon Bell, Devonta Freeman, whoever. But the ball control offense, seemingly helps the Ravens win games, but it's a balance of being aggressive versus doing all of that. And so with the Ravens defense in that time of possession battle, the Ravens defense was tired. They were definitely tired towards the end of this game. They were missing Marcus Peters. I talked about it before, and I talked about it yesterday. Marcus Peters gives the Ravens a sense of comfortability just in terms of that he's probably going to be sticking to his man. And no shot to Anthony Averett. Again, I think he played really well. But just looking at what Marcus Peters would have brought to the team, the home run ability, the football IQ, being out there as a really respected veteran on the field for the young guys. I mean, Chris Westry played a lot in this one. I thought he played decent. Brandon Stevens played a lot in this one. I thought he played decent as well. But there are just certain things the Ravens have to clean up. And for the most part, it's in the pass rushing department because there are no ways in the NFL that defensive backs, secondary members can cover for 3, 4, 5, 6 seconds every single play. And with the way that the Ravens are blitzing, the offenses try to, and I think tend to get the ball out a bit quicker against the Ravens defense because they don't want to risk a guy getting free. And with the Ravens sending 5, 6, 7 guys, and we saw Derek Carr, chucking it just down to Hunter Renfrow or doing a bunch of different stuff there, a short pass to Brian Edwards that picks up 9, 10, 11. And we saw the Ravens, the bend don't break defense, but at the end of the day, it just did not work out for them. It was a disappointing end to a phenomenal game. Everybody thinks the Ravens are on the ropes. They give up a couple big plays, one to Brian Edwards, one to Hunter Renfrow. Edwards gets in the end zone, everybody thinks, but it ends up being called back just shy. The Ravens put together a couple of nice plays. Willie Snead ends up getting the ball, or I guess doesn't get the ball. It goes through his hands. And actually, it pops up off Deshaun Elliott's helmet. Anthony Averett comes down with the interception. So at that point, everybody, it's ecstatic. It's like, what is this game? What is going on right here? But the Ravens just could not get the job done on offense. The ball goes back to the Raiders offense on that Lamar Jackson fumble. And the Raiders, they punch it in for 6 to win the football game. So heading home to Baltimore, the pass rush definitely has to get cleaned up. This game was lost in the trenches on both sides of the ball. To be very simple about it, the offensive line did not play up to the standards they have to play up to for the Ravens to win games. The Ravens defense, in terms of pressure, did not play up to the standards they have to win games. And that includes the pass rush, interior and exterior guys, whether you're talking about Calais Campbell, who I did think had a pretty good game, but, Justin Houston, a bit inconsistent, although he did have a couple of nice plays in there. The blitzes just did not get home. And this was against a very inexperienced Raiders offensive line, which I think makes it like 10 times worse because they lose a guy in Denzel Good, who was a pretty big part of that line. And still, the Ravens could not get pressure against very inexperienced players, very young players, guys who were playing out of position. So it was unfortunate, but the Ravens, they have work to do. They will look to correct that work, and we will see what happens in week 2 against the Kansas City Chiefs. And that's where we will be going next here on Locked On Ravens in our final segment, as we will be talking about the Ravens and their week 2 matchup. So stay tuned for that, and we will be right back. But this episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Wander out from pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand their warehouse happens to carry. You will have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. Save time and money when using Rock Auto. Rock Auto is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Rock Auto prices are reliably low for every customer. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, Locked On in the How'd You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. And Does this sound familiar? You've got one device that lets you catch the game live, another that lets you stream your favorite shows, you're watching sports highlights on your phone, and you've got your neighbor's best friends logging for the good stuff. Well, I want to tell you about a simple way to get all the entertainment you love without the hassle, and a great way to get your TV together. It's called DirecTV Stream, and it brings your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, so you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. That means no more juggling remotes and no need to buy another device ever again. And the best part, there's no annual contract. That means no more juggling and getting rid of the clutter and the confusion, and get your DirecTV all together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directv.com. That's directv.com. Compatible device required. Content varies by package. And we return here with our final segment of this Tuesday edition of Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher is still here with you. And after that disappointing loss to the Las Vegas Raiders in Week 1, the Ravens are going to look to move on quickly and get back to Baltimore and prepare for the Kansas City Chiefs on a short week. They'll be playing on Sunday night at 8:20 p.m. Eastern time. And it's something where this is a really tough two-game stretch now, because a lot of people, they were expecting a loss to Kansas City, and that was something that was like, yeah, look, we'll just mark it down. I thought before the injuries, Baltimore was going to win this game. I'll say it now. I think they're going to actually not win this one. I think they are going to drop to 0-2. Obviously, my predictions can change throughout the week just based off of what's going on. But, right now I think the Ravens, with the way they played, with just how everybody's gelling together, it's going to take some time to do it. The season is not over by any stretch of the imagination, but it is kind of, depleting to have a game like this go the opposite way that you want it to. So, Kansas City, the Ravens have lost the last 3 meetings to Kansas City 3 years in a row. This is the 4th year in a row the Ravens will be matching up with the Kansas City Chiefs. And this one's going to be a tough one. The Ravens, they are going to be going up against the Chiefs team that revamped their entire offensive line with former Raven Orlando Brown Jr. at the very forefront of that. They also have guys like Creed Humphrey, Joe Thuney, Trey Smith, and a bunch of others as well who will step in there and I think do a pretty good job. Now, Orlando Brown Jr. struggled pretty badly against the Cleveland Browns in Week 1, so maybe that's a good news thing for the Ravens. But, Patrick Mahomes and that offense is just so deadly, such a juggernaut. I mean, the Ravens, they're going to have to really play well against Mahomes. Very little mistakes they will be able to make against Patrick Mahomes, because he tears teams apart with the blitz. And if they are blitzing him, Mahomes just chucks it down to Travis Kelce. Tyreek Hill gets open. Mecole Hardman does some stuff. Right? They have a bunch of weapons. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Patrick Mahomes is another worldly talent. He does so many things with the football that I just think are majestic and amazing, much like Lamar Jackson. But, both players are good in their own way. So, in this one, I think where the Ravens have to get their bread and butter is with their own run game. They have to get back to what they know. They have to get the efficiency back up to what it was, during the 2021 season. This time the Ravens have to be able to go out there, control the clock their way. They cannot let Kansas City beat them at their own game, which if the Chiefs hold on to the ball and they're scoring touchdowns and the Ravens can't get the ball back and they're kicking field goals, you cannot kick field goals against Kansas City and win. You have to punch the ball into the end zone. Look, Kansas City's defense did not play well in the first half against Cleveland. It was not good at all. And that defense, the Ravens, even in their state right now, could have put up maybe 30-40. But the way that they tightened up in the second half against Cleveland, I give them a lot of credit for doing so, even without Tyrann Mathieu, even without Frank Clark. The Ravens offense might have a bit of trouble, because if the Chiefs defense plays like they did in the first half of Week 1, it could be a different story and the Ravens could put up some points. But if they played like they did in the second half of Week 1, then I think it gets a little bit more difficult, especially with Mathieu and Frank Clark coming back. So this is a game that the Ravens, they don't, like, their season isn't over if they don't win it, but it is definitely important. It would get a very big chip off of their shoulder, just in terms of, hey, we want to beat Kansas City. We really want this. And they really do. They think about it all the time, but coming off of such a depleting loss and having to play Kansas City just 6 days later, it's all setting up for, maybe the Ravens don't win this one. Now, they have proved me wrong before, and honestly, again, I hope they do. But against the guy in Patrick Mahomes, where this defense, they struggle to generate pressure even with the blitzing. So I talked about it a bit. If the Ravens don't generate pressure even with sending 6, 7, 8 guys, Patrick Mahomes is going to have an absolute field day. So they have to be able to generate pressure on Patrick Mahomes. They have to be able to maybe exploit Orlando Brown Jr. at left tackle, as he's still getting acclimated to playing it in Kansas City. Brown had, according to Mike Renner of Pro Football Focus, he had 5 pressures, which tied a career high in a single game for him. So there are areas for the Ravens to win this one. And on the offensive side of the ball, hopefully just getting back to their offense. Again, I talked about it, the run offense, but also throwing the football a bit more efficiently and not throwing the ball as much in situations where it doesn't really call for it. The Ravens, they do a lot of their play action stuff. The mesh point also is something that's a bit concerning right now just because the players in this offense haven't had a ton of experience with it, so they're still learning. For guys like J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards and Justice Hill, they had that experience. But now heading into week 2, the other guys like Williams and like Bell and Freeman and Murray and whoever, they all have that experience, but it's only one game right now and some practices. They'll have some more practices leading up, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the Ravens play this one. I think they do fall to 0-2, but that doesn't mean their season is over. Again, it's not like the Ravens have just 2 games in their regular season. The Kansas City Chiefs are a very talented football team. They obviously have a ton of different guys who can hurt any team on offense and defense, but so do the Ravens. So look, I'm not counting the Ravens out of any game. I think it'll be a close one, but I think that just with everything how it's gone so far with the injuries, with the Ravens putting yet another new piece on the offensive line, if the Tyree Phillips injury is serious, and just guys needing to gel. This could take, week 3, week 4, week 5, which is okay. Guys need time like that. But again, it just doesn't feel good. I know it doesn't feel good when the Ravens lose and then all of a sudden it becomes a bit of a doomsday scenario. And I'm not there for doomsday, but I do know that some people are feeling that way. So the season is not over. In fact, it has just begun. And I think it will still turn into something good for the Ravens, but they will have to work really hard to get there. But that's all that I have for you today here on Locked On Ravens. Again, if you enjoy our content here on YouTube, be sure to subscribe, like the video, and be sure to follow us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. When we get back here tomorrow, we'll be diving into your mailbag questions here, so stay tuned for that, and I will see you tomorrow.